Hey folks, how's it going? Today we are in Realm of the Mad God. This is partially because my last video that I made in Realm has blown up, at least in terms of the scale of this channel. It's been pretty successful. It's gotten like 100+ views within a few days. And I think Realm is a very interesting game that it's never really taken off, as in it's never really entered the mainstream consciousness in the way that a game like, I don't know, Minecraft or Roblox has. It's never really reached that degree of popularity. And I think that's due to a number of different factors, like just the fact that it is a permadeath game makes it slightly more inaccessible than something that's easier to pick up, easier to understand, maybe. And also, I feel like it has gotten more complicated as a game in the over the course of however many years, which is true of many games. But that also adds a layer degree of difficulty. But what I wanted to do is kind of just start a series that's very chill. It's just kind of a chill commentary, and I'll just be trying to play through PPEs. I've had varying degrees of success with PPEs. It's kind of basically just how a new player might play the game. The only difference being that I have a fairly powerful pet, not the most powerful that you'll see, but it has 88 M heal, 82 heal, which are good levels. You probably won't get a pet that level unless you have already played the game for maybe at least like 3 or 4 months. Of course, I've played this game on and off for a very long time, but okay, enough rambling. I'm on a seasonal character. It's a wizard. This is a fresh character, as you can see. It's tier 0 gear, no backpack, and we're just gonna go straight into a realm. We'll just hop into Imp. It seems like a pretty full realm, so hopefully this ends up going well. Yeah, I think from just that Moonlight Village gameplay video, you can see that there is definitely a market still for Realm of the Mad God content. But the thing is that the demand for the content isn't really being met all that much by the current content being outputted by creators, mostly because I feel like it's stagnated for various reasons. So, like, for example, a lot of it has been PPEs, in the past now. And the problem with PPE videos that are, well edited, and the kind of thing that instantly pops into your head when you think of a PPE video is that the footage that goes into that is incredibly hard to collect. I mean, just from the pure time investment, that's probably tens or maybe even in some cases hundreds of hours just going into one video. So in terms of the time spent versus the amount of content produced, that ratio is really very bad. And that's obviously not to discourage anybody from making PPE videos. In fact, some of my favorite Realm videos have been PPE videos. But in terms of practicality, they aren't very practical. But of course, you could argue that making videos is kind of an art in a way. So does it really need to be all that practical? Like, if your goal isn't just purely to make money, then that's probably not all that big of a consideration on your mind. So yeah, just if you are a content creator, just make whatever feels fun to you. And then on the other side of things, if they're not PPEs, there are a bunch of different other formats of videos that I can think of are like, let's say like void solos, or just like soloing dungeons, or dungeon speedruns done on a solo character, which are kind of inaccessible in terms of like a newer player who sees somebody doing that. They don't really have maybe such a clear idea of why it's so difficult, or maybe even if they do, it kind of feels a bit out of reach because those people have obviously put in a ton of skill. I've put a lot of time into this game. There is also skill that I still do not have. And then the final kind of form of content that I can broadly think of course, these are gross generalizations, but like, for example, Sebchoof is a great Realm creator. The kind of content that he's doing recently, like hardcore player experiences where he, can't Nexus, can't solos most dungeons, etc., is also kind of falls into that just kind of making the game harder because these creators have kind of already seen basically everything that the game has to offer. So they're trying to branch out into something that makes the game actively more difficult, which I think is also a good way to go about things. But the point of this ramble is just that I feel like there's a lot of content that has yet to be explored, a lot of things that talent and potential that is yet to be realized, especially in terms of this game, both due to the nature and kind of due to the lack of creators, because it's such a small game, or well, it's not really a small game, but it is in relation to other games much smaller. So the vanilla PvE experience is kind of, at the beginning it's very slow, it's very bland. Like you can just see me just killing these things. Nothing really poses that great of a danger to your life. And I mean, I think that's just kind of a product of how this game, which is a Flash era game, a lot of the newer parts of the game and the older parts of the game, like the new player experience, have not been really revamped to the extent that like in-game content has been. Mainly because the vast amount of income for Dega, which is the company that makes this game, is in fact like maybe veteran players who are like whales, like who spend hundreds of dollars on the game rather than new players, and it is difficult to continue to play this game as a new player. Like I've tried to introduce a few friends to this game, and they might play it for a few days or a couple weeks, but I think it's rare that somebody really ever sticks around in the end. Just because it's kind of super discouraging to die in this game, especially when you're a new player who's just building up their account. Like for me, dying on an 8-8 is kind of just not really as impactful as you would think. Of course, like it still hurts. Or for newer players, if they lose like an 8-8 character or something, it's definitely way more devastating of an experience than it is for someone who has, than for a veteran player who's played the game for a long time. So that's just kind of the nature of the game. And I don't think there's really a way to fix this problem. I mean, it's not really a problem. It's more just the fact of how the game works. And there's a certain amount of beauty, I guess, in terms of like just considering the fact that the permadeath mechanic is kind of a core mechanic of the game, but it also it kind of makes the game a bit harder to get into than something that isn't so high stakes, I guess you could say. So yeah, but as a PPE class, I would say that the warrior is a pretty good PPE class. Obviously, like I would not recommend playing warrior for newer players, considering the warrior has maybe like the worst survivability of any class in the game, basically, due to having no mobility, like terrible defense. The health points at max are also pretty bad. So the warrior is kind of just the archetypal class canon, and you can see that by the ability, like the spell bomb. If you can land a perfect one, that's just a ton of damage because it's 20 shots. At least the tiered ones have 20 shots. So if you land one perfectly on an enemy, or even most of the shots on an enemy, it can do a bunch of damage. But in exchange, you kind of have very little health, very little speed. So that can sometimes make dodging or running away in certain situations kind of more difficult. But yeah, so obviously this goes back to the same problem that I was kind of talking about in that. Okay, let's teleport to the godlands real quick. But yeah, that the early game is kind of just very boring and monotonous. It kind of takes a bunch of patience to start off. Of course, like you could, a lot of people adopt the strat of just like hopping it into like an O3 run or something straight out of the gate. If the character dies, it doesn't really matter since they've spent like 10 minutes on it or whatever. But if it ends up working out, then that's already like a massive boost for them in terms of the gear that they have. Like if they just get like a super powerful item right off the start. And I think that is a strategy to adopt, but I prefer to be a little bit more methodical about it, because it's probably more akin to what you would be doing if you were like a really new player. Like you wouldn't just go into an O3 just straight off the bat, because obviously you probably wouldn't have the knowledge or the well, it's just a difference in knowledge, right? I think skill is kind of, I mean, it's debatable, but I guess you could say that skill is knowledge that is applied in a certain way. It's a bit of a wishy-washy definition, but you could say that. And I think from a fantasy kind of perspective, obviously Realm isn't a very lore-intensive game. Like the lore is kind of mostly just up to your own interpretations or imagination. But I think the wizard ability is super interesting to me, as someone who reads fantasy, and it's interesting to consider like a tablet, like a certain spell is associated with a tablet. Maybe like you read an incantation from it or something, and that causes a certain effect to happen. So Realm really goes for the more I guess object oriented magic system in terms of rather than like verbal casting spells or some other method. Spells are tied to objects, which is obviously fitting because it's a game and items are objects, so you want some way to kind of reconcile the two things. But yeah, the fact that it's a tablet is very interesting. Okay, so let's see. Okay, this realm is actually quite close to closing. You can see we only have five quests remaining before the realm is going to be closed, and we'll go to Oryx's castle. One interesting thing to know is that the XP give rate of minions in Oryx's castle is much higher, it seems, than like even regular minions in the realm. So if you want some way to level up very quickly, that's also a good way to do it. Although I think we're probably, odds are we're maybe going to hit max level here before Oryx activates, so there is that. My spell bombing is absolutely terrible, so for people who aren't really familiar with the classes that I play, I'm usually basically a melee only player. I don't really know how it happened. It's not like I was consciously like, okay, melees are super cool, I just want to play melee. But it just kind of happened somehow. So I don't have much experience playing other classes. Like compared to the amount of hours I've played melee, I have played the range and katana classes very, very little in comparison. So there is that. My skill with range classes is definitely nowhere near my quote-unquote skill with melee. So, alright. Oh, we got a tier 9 robe. Okay, that's good. Having higher defense in the early game definitely really helps. Of course, during the late game, defense kind of becomes gradually less important stat, since a bit of lag there, but since the shots that the boss fires do way more damage compared to the amount of damage that defense is negating, so defense will become way less important, and HP will become, proportionally more important as the games go on. A bit weird there, but okay. I'll probably end this video after we get to level 20 because that seems like a fairly good stopping place. And then we might continue it. I don't know how often I'll be uploading. I don't really want to set myself a concrete schedule because I do have other things to do outside of, you know, making videos, which these are very, very casual. I'm not even really going to edit them probably. Even if I do end up deciding to do any editing, it'll probably just be very light kind of. But other than that, not really editing, kind of a casual affair. But okay, the realm is actually closed now, so we might actually get to see Oryx's castle before we are actually level 20. But once we get in there, we should hit level 20 in like legitimately like less than 30 seconds. I would imagine. Since for leveling, Oryx's castle is a very good resource. Let's see, we don't really need this egg since my pet yard is basically full anyways of junk pets. A fun fact is that I have never actually gotten a heal, M-heal electric, or M-heal heal electric pet, despite having popped over probably like 400 or 500 pet eggs, so that's a bit of a fun fact, if you will. Oh, a better staff. We'll take it, we'll take it. Alright, yeah, so you'll notice it's a funny thing there, but when the realm starts shaking, indicating that you're about to be teleported to Oryx's castle, you will see that you are actually invulnerable during that period. You cannot take damage while the screen is shaking. So that's something that's interesting. Looks like we have hit level 20 here. Our roll is pretty good, actually, pretty good. So for those who don't know, once you hit level 20, if you have, you know, provided you've drank no stat potion upgrades, the amount of potions that you need to drink in order to max a stat, which is this number next to the bar, to the right of the bar, is different. It can kind of vary between a range of values. So if you're super lucky, you could get a roll that, obviously you can't get a roll where like all your stats are already maxed, but there are rolls that are better and rolls that are relatively worse. So like for some characters that you create, even within like a specific class, on let's say on Wizard, if you get to level 20, it could be that you need, you know, like 40 attack to max or something. But on this character, we only need 34, so I'm pretty sure that's a decent number. But yeah, I think we'll probably end up trying to do at least the Guardians and Oryx 1 here. I don't know if we're going to do Oryx 2. It could be worth it, but I'm not even sure I can output enough damage to actually hit the Soulbound threshold, which is how much damage you need to do to a boss in order to receive, or at least have a chance of receiving, loot. So there's that. But yeah, like, see, like, right now, of course the Guardians are kind of an exception since they have a lot of defense. But I'm doing, like, 10 damage per hit to these guys. And the spell's not doing much more either, so... yeah, it's a bit unfortunate. We also don't have an armor break, so it's going very slowly. Okay, that was... okay, that's a bit not good. We might want to drink a few health potions just to prevent ourselves from dying so early in our journey. Alright, and the blue Guardian is almost dead here. He's very close to dying. Now, after the first Guardian dies, one thing that you might want to know is that the second Guardian will throw out this sword, and do not sit like towards the bottom half of the room where that sword might be, because if he throws it onto you, you will die instantly, unless you have some kind of invulnerability. But other than that, you will most likely die. Oh wait, we got a tier 3 spell and a tier 8 spellblade here. Let's just pick those up really quickly. Alright, let's just drop the stuff we don't need. And the armor piercing should be... okay, we almost got... okay, I keep on forgetting that we have no speed, so I keep on making a few questionable decisions. But okay, so yeah, this is looking like a decent start here. Hopefully, we get something that we can actually use from Oryx 1, but I'm not positive that we will, which I suppose is part of the fun. But yeah, I think with the tier 8 and tier 3, we should attempt to do Oryx 2 at least. Although our damage as a group is looking fairly abysmal. But then again, this is a public run, so that is kind of to be expected. This could be rough. This could be rough. Yeah, I'm not sure if those two bombs would have actually hit us at the exact same time, but I decided to not take any unnecessary risks, at least in that case, considering it was just an Oryx 1. It's not like we could have gotten anything super useful either, but so far, our progress is that we have already leveled up to level 20. Our set looks like this, and these are our pots left to max. So, yeah, I will see you guys in the next episode.